This is Angela Garoni,
Nancy Dayhoff,
Kelsey Bramlett,
and Kevin Reese.
We are Group Las Vegas taking EDM 310 at the University of South Alabama. Today we will be discussing evidence from Mark Prensky's book, Teaching Digital Natives, supporting the idea that educators are not addressing students' passions or the skills necessary for them to reach their potential. We'll also offer evidence supporting whether or not we agree with Prensky's claims.
So speaking to the point of supporting Prensky's evidence, on 55, Prensky, and I'll quote him from the book, he says he recently polled a group of 200 teachers and administrators, and he asked them the question, what percentage of teachers know the passion of each of their students? And he goes on to basically say that an overwhelming majority did not know the passion of their students, which is somewhat remarkable when you think about the fact that the teachers who spend all day, every day with our children, teaching them, and that is their primary job, they really have never been able to tap into each child as an individual and discover their passion. And so how do we as future educators then bridge that gap?
I have an example. My 9-year-old son, he came home with his MacBook and started playing games on it. My child did not realize that he was learning anything. He was just playing games. There's math and spelling and all kinds of other subjects. He was interested in the game. Austin's passion, he stays in front of a video game 24/7 if I would allow him. And I think it's really cool that the school was able to tap into that, to be able to teach students. They were actually learning, and they didn't even realize they were learning anything at all.
And he also says in his book that the same kids that are bored in school, that have attention deficit disorder and all those examples, those are the kids that go home, and because they're passionate about technology, they're passionate about getting out there and doing their own thing, then when they go home and they're not stuck in the school that has them write stuff and just the boring routine of study the material, take the test, study the material, take the test, when they come home, they're on YouTube, they're on Facebook, they're on their TV games, they're on their iPads, iPods, and through that they're learning. And one of the things that he says, particularly talks about in the book, is what the kids want to learn today and how they want to learn. And one of the big emphases that he places is the respect, kind of like you're saying with your son. He wants to know that he's respected enough not to be considered an idiot, but given something that's useful for him to learn with.
Right.
And so that would be helpful in the classroom, and just kind of addressing what they're passionate about, and at the same time teaching them how to use technology in the right way so that they are successful in future careers, and then in the next grade level so that they know how to use it appropriately.
And Prensky pretty much points out that teachers are often engaged in teaching what they're passionate or how they're teaching in a passionate manner. So the students are often left out, as your survey pointed out, Nancy. That is at the core of it, where we as educators or future educators, we need to get up there and actually find out what the students' individual passions are and incorporate them in a PBL type of classroom.
And I think if you go into any typical classroom, and this also presses Prensky's point, any typical classroom setup is children, first of all, you have to be quiet and you work individually. If you were to observe any group of children in their own personal playtimes, they are not being quiet. They want to interact with others. They want to play games. So this is part of stepping up the program and giving children like Kelsey's tools in their hand that they really don't even realize they're learning. They're doing what they want to do. They're playing that game. They're interacting with others. And this is all part of what he's talking about, the project-based learning, learning each child's individual passion, which those passions are very different. So that requires more effort on the teacher's part, or time.
And he goes on more, and it's, I think, touching on what all of you said, it's that whole concept that kids always ask, why do I need to learn this? Why should I learn it? Why is this important to me? Why do I need to know it? And giving them sort of real feedback, and if they're excited about it, then you don't even have to address the why should I learn it question, or how is this important to me. If it's something that they're excited about, that they're intrinsically motivated about, they're automatically going to want to learn and study and do a project or talk to someone else about it or read another book, or it's just they're going to motivate themselves versus the teacher having to hold a grade or detention or you stay in from PE over your head about the topic.
I didn't even have to ask him to sit down and do this. Like, he was doing it on his own, playing these games, and he does have ADHD. So he is like 90 to nothing all the time from the time he gets home to school. So and I didn't even have to make him do this, and he was learning all on his own.
I thought one of the neat comments that I read, and it made me think about my own children and any children that I might teach. He makes the comment that one of the universal laments for students is that they think teachers are considering them stupid. They're saying we're not stupid, we're capable of learning this stuff, but basically they're crying out for it to be presented in a way that is engaging to them, that isn't just relevant, but it's real, like it's real-time responses. It's something that they're actually going to be able to use and not just boring, mundane, okay, now you know how to do all your times tables, let's take a test on it. That whole concept.
Well, and on page 56, he talks about the very thing you just said about students being bored. And he says it should surprise very few readers to learn that students typically report to me that they are bored 50 to 100% in 50 to 100% of their classes, 50 to 100% of the time. So they are definitely speaking and telling people, yes, I am bored. So now it's our turn to listen and to think, now how can we switch things around to make things more focused on how they learn, and which overwhelmingly involves their passion, their interest.
Which kind of brings us to our next topic. Because their passion, most kids are so excited about technology and the use of it. While I agree with a lot of what he says, with the majority of what Prensky states in his book, the concern I have, or I guess the caution, is what do you do in those situations where you don't have vast amounts of technology, whether it's through funding or you just have 4 computers for the children? How dividing all that time equally and teaching them those skills to work collaboratively when maybe it's never been done, overcoming that barrier can be an issue as a classroom teacher. And then learning, I think for some teachers, just learning how to use the technology well enough to be comfortable putting it in the hands of kids.
I mean, that puts us in that situation where we as teachers should always continue to be learners, which is why a lot of teachers don't want to go back and actually make the conversation to their students about you actually teaching me as a teacher, which is one of the concepts that helps teachers in the classroom direct their focus and not all about me. To get PBL started in the classroom, you have to identify what those passions are that your students have, and then you kind of put them to task on it and continue to build on it in a sense that the students are going to be able to create and come up with new ideas and questions that will lead you as well as the other students in a more positive direction.
100% agree with you. That's very important. We're always learners. But to finish it up, Prensky states here in his book, which I think is a wonderful summary for this conversation, he says, remember, knowing and using your students' passions helps them and you. Your students want you to know what they are passionate about because it's part of knowing who they are. Knowing that you know and really care about their interest and not just what you're teaching them will often motivate them to do things they might otherwise not. At the same time, your knowing their passions helps you to be the best coach and guide that you can be.
This concludes our discussion on Mark Prensky's Teaching Digital Natives, and we're also citing Mark Prensky's book, Teaching Digital Natives, as our source.